Hello. How slow is the connection? Hello. How slow is my connection?
It's okay, but it's late.
What?
Because the Zoom says it starts at 10:30 and it's 10:33.
I didn't change the batteries on my wall clock. I didn't even get my coffee ready.
Mr. Hendro, is this mandatory?
Yes. We're going to be talking about what the last unit assignment is. I guess we start. And if anybody else joins in, they join in. Let's just Zoom is stuck.
Oh, also Mr. Hendro.
Yep.
Mr. Hendro. Jonathan is having internet problems. So he said he has to deal with it and then he'll come back quickly.
But he's in Korea.
Can fix it. Yeah.
How does Korea have internet trouble? It's Korea.
I don't know. He said he had internet troubles. Mr. Hendro, Korea doesn't necessarily mean it has the most advanced Wi-Fi. Okay. It might be his Zoom. I don't know. Some kind of servers are linked at Singapore or Indonesia. So.
Could you live without internet?
No.
Yes, I did for a whole week.
Really? Could you live without electricity?
Because there was no electricity also. So.
Where were you?
Isanadieng, because Isanadieng decided to be like, oh guys, we're gonna change our generator. So you're just gonna live with a whole week without Wi-Fi and internet and warm water and nothing.
Yeah, if there's no internet, there's gonna be no Wi-Fi.
Exactly, Karina.
There's no electricity.
No. Yeah, exactly, Karina. That's how things work.
You could have just said there's no electricity.
So what did you do? Read books?
No,
I slept.
House or something.
You slept for a week.
Oh, she went to her pastor's house.
Oh, yes, I went to my pastor's house to charge my phone because I had to do school, and then school gave me internet work and I'm just there with no data and then I'm just like, okay. Then we had to go to my pastor's house, but then if I go back home, then I can't charge my phone, so I have to leave my phone in my pastor's house, and the pastor's children will give me my phone at school in the morning.
That is the most horrifying profile pic there, Billy.
It's Hitler.
Mr. Hendro, you haven't seen the worst.
No, don't show me. Don't show me.
Pedro Hitler.
I never said I would.
Okay, we are in the last unit of the year. If you have checked your Google Classroom for history, you will know that we are not going to Jogja.
Wow.
I would have never guessed.
What a surprise!
So, and I am going to combine this last unit with the exam. So it counts as both the exam and an essay.
Mr. Hendro.
What?
Let me explain. So, do you remember at the beginning of the year, or if you were here at the beginning of the year before, what is the purpose that we study history?
To not repeat the same mistakes.
That's not necessarily why. Where do you get
I
that
don't know.
idea?
You've been
I thought
talking
you
about
said
this,
that too.
like,
Where do you get the idea? Where did you get the idea that we study history not to make the same mistakes?
Because
how
you had a
about
whole
you
argument with
talking about
You
Kyle.
said it.
how
Yeah.
Yes, but where?
history had
Yeah,
if
I got it.
history had
I got
someone
it from-
jumping off a window and died, then you learn from that and decide, oh, so if you jumped from a window, you'll die. I shouldn't repeat that in the present.
Okay, but that's more of an experimental thing. History is a little bit different, but it's the idea that people need to learn from history is quite old. Let me just read you a quote from Cicero. So Cicero said, and this is in reference to Julius Caesar, and he was quite afraid of Julius Caesar. He said, "Not to know what has happened in former times is to be always a child. If no use is made of the labors of past ages or the efforts of previous generations, the world must remain always in the infancy of knowledge." And this was written before the birth of Christ. So even back then, you had people saying, study history or you're not going to advance. So his idea was you need to learn from the past so that you can advance socially, technologically, and all that sort of stuff. The two quotes that I stuck in discussion post 8.1 are both from George Santayana. And this is the one that most people think of when they say you have to study history so that we don't repeat the same mistakes. Those who do not remember the past are condemned to repeat it. However, George Santayana also said history is a pack of lies about events that never happened, told by people who weren't there.
What? I don't get it.
People make up history.
Like imagination history?
No, people get it wrong. So, for example, Becky did some research that messed up my idea of Churchill completely.
Me?
Yeah, your research pointed out that there was that Winston Churchill had an affair with an actress, and I was like blown away. I mean,
that's not his first time he did it.
right, but it's no.
What?
It's the only one that they found.
Huh?
It's recent research that came out, I think, either last year or the year before. So you then have to revise what you knew about the time period.
Wait, what guy?
Sorry.
When did I? Never mind.
I'm pretty sure it was you, Becky. It might have been someone else, but I'm pretty sure it was you. And I'm not saying
Communism thingy? Communism
no,
is
no, with the 3 leaders.
really
It was back then. So that's new information that I have to then change my understanding. And it's not necessarily that that's entirely correct. It might not have been a once-off thing.
Are you proud?
It's good research, Becky. What I'm trying to point out is you don't necessarily get the correct picture. You don't necessarily have the correct idea in your head about what the past was like. That's what Santayana's saying.
That's a bad thing, right?
Well, how do you know? There are no... Okay, so we studied Alexander the Great last year. How many primary sources do we have?
None.
0. There are no primary sources on Alexander the Great. The earliest one is like 100 or 200 years afterwards. Some of the work done in history, like Caesar's Gallic Wars, they're not to be trusted either, because they function on the same level as Soviet and German propaganda. It's a picture that Caesar wants of himself that the people see. He might have been completely different, but this is Caesar's version of Caesar. Kind of like Stalin's version of Stalin is different from everybody else's version of Stalin. But that's the only one that survived. if in 1,000 years the only accounts of Joseph Stalin that survive are Joseph Stalin's accounts of Joseph Stalin, he's going to look a whole lot better. Do you get the problem? Okay. Anyway, going back to what this unit's going to be about. So the unit will be divided into 4 pieces, and the 2 bits in the middle are kind of the same. So, and this is going to be really hard. This is going to be a real shock for some of you, but I don't need this to be done well, because the grade for the first one will be the same as the grade for the last section. So this grade can be improved, and I hope it will be improved. That's why there's these other sections in between. So I need you to actually write the essay or do the video or whatever presentation you have in 7 days. Am I still online?
Hi, Mr. Hendro.
Okay.
Hi, Mr. Hendro.
Okay. So what I want you to do is I want you to compare the situation today with a prior historical event, like before 1990. And if you want to get the best level, make a prediction based on that comparison. So what events are going on now that are like an event in the past?
Could you say that again?
Is there anything going on right now, present day, that's similar to an event in the past?
Oh, economic failure. Economic failure.
What example in the past are you comparing it to?
I heard you said that last time there was this economic failure in America.
Called?
The Great Depression.
That's it. So if you did an essay and you compared the two, then you can go one step further and say, well, if this is the same as that this is what I predict will happen, or this is what we need to do to prevent bad stuff happening.
Cool.
Okay. Any other ideas? What else is happening today that's similar to something happening in the past?
The Black Death.
Black Death could work.
Black Death. Is it? But Black Death is more of a serious type, right?
Because coronavirus.
Are you saying
isn't-
COVID-19 is not serious?
I mean,
COVID-19
I mean-
is like a joke.
It's like a joke for you, Jonathan. Not Jonathan, Dallas.
Okay.
You can compare the Black Death with COVID-19 if you want, and you can make some predictions on it. The other thing you could do is you could measure. Well, which plague would you compare it with?
Well, none like this happened before because, first of all,
What
traveling has never been advanced as it is now.
Roughly every 100 years, you get a huge outbreak. You had the cholera outbreaks of 1720. You had another outbreak in 1820s, and then you had an outbreak just before the 1920s called the Spanish influenza. So history kind of gives you a timeline that you get these huge globalized pandemics of such a level every 100 years or so.
Isn't it similar to the Spanish flu?
Yes, and it's dissimilar in other ways.
Wait, is Spanish flu like? It's both like you can't cure it.
Oh, there are similarities and there are differences.
Yep.
So for Spanish influenza, it didn't affect the very old so much. And it didn't affect the very young either. So like coronavirus doesn't affect the very young, but it did affect people in the prime of their life. So at the moment, you having a lot of people that are old dying, while as in Spanish influenza, you had a lot of people who were 30, 20.
Oh.
There's a difference there. In that it's global, similar. The death toll is not going to be anywhere nearly similar because you're not in a war situation where you're saying, okay, we need to keep people at home. We can't keep people at home because we need to send them to a front line to go fight the Germans.
Mr. Hendro.
Yep.
What are we doing?
You're going to be doing an essay within the next 7 days about
an essay?
Yes, the essay has to be finished within the next 7 days. It doesn't need to be brilliant, because in the next 2 weeks after that, your next 2 weeks, you're going to be assigned someone else's essay to critique. I will be grading your critiques.
Oof.
Wait, so are you saying that if you don't find a single problem about that, then you don't get a good grade?
There is no way. There's no possible way that you can't make some sort of criticism.
Andrew?
I mean, what if it's not a good critique?
Guys, just make a few
Then I
spelling
will-
mistakes.
Then no. I'm not grading on the spelling mistakes. I'm grading on the disagreements. So
Ah, I
every
see.
one of the critiques will also require MLA citations. So when you're analyzing what other people are doing, you're going to have to use MLA citations.
Mr. Andrew?
Yes, Billy.
So will it be comments in the form of comments, or will it be in the form of sort of like a short essay evaluating it afterwards? Or both?
It will be a one-page evaluation of the other person's work, and you will be
Okay.
critiquing their ideas. You'll be saying things like, this is an incorrect statement because of this, or you say, this, I agree wholeheartedly with this. Could I add? You don't just say, I agree with it. I agree with it very much so, and then bring in another piece of information to support why.
So are you supposed to quote them on their own work when you're critiquing it?
You can. I'm looking for more an ideas comment. So if you were to say, who was the person who said Spanish influenza? So if you compared it to Spanish influenza, and then you said, yes, I agree that you compare it with Spanish influenza, but I added something else. It's also similar to the cholera outbreaks of 1720. Here's a quote from there. Or you can say, I disagree completely that it should be compared with the Spanish influenza for the following reasons.
Mr. Hendra?
Yes, Dylan.
I've been reading the thing, and it says that this will be an essay or video due on the 27th. What do you mean by video?
You could upload a video
of yourself talking?
Yep. An
That's
audio
awesome.
file would also be okay, and I just run it through the subtitle generator, and I do a word count from that. I mean, I don't need to have a perfect transcript to get a word count.
Mr. Hendro, is the 20% like the essays out of 80%? Is the 20 the critique?
Okay.
Or
The grade that you get for this, I mean, I will grade it, but it is also the same grade that will be your final grade. So it will change. So if you get, I don't expect you to get a perfect score first off. I will be checking, the final grade will also include critique scores. I have not weighted that to 100%. I've just put in numbers.
We need to do 2 critiques, right?
Yes. So next week, you'll be critiquing someone else. Let's say, if I take the 2 people to your right, Dylan, you'd be looking at Billy's next week, and then you'd be looking at Tim's the week after, for example.
I have a question.
Yes.
So if we want to critique someone, we write like a whole essay on why it shouldn't or why it's not, right?
You write a 1-page critique. Now that 1-page critique does not include your citations.
Do we write a 1-page essay too?
I have not given you the task yet of doing the critiques. Get the essay part of it done first. I'm giving it to you in pieces.
Mr. Hendro?
Yep.
So the discussion 8.1 is quote unquote the essay one.
Yes.
Okay.
wait, how does this relate to our final?
Well, that will be your final. It'll also be the essay. So I'm going to put whatever score,
Like
whatever score you get on this essay will count as your final essay and your final exam.
So basically, if we fail this, we're gonna fail the class.
Wait, but is this after the critiquing?
Yeah.
Yes, it's after.
So-
Of
so-
course, it's after. the
So what I want to do is I want to have the essay at the beginning and the essay in. So the essay this week and the essay in 3 weeks. So you're doing the same essay, but just in the middle of that, you're having 2 other people critique your work in detail, not in terms of the spelling, not in terms of the grammar, but in terms of the ideas. So the big part of it is your ability to formulate an argument. Now, the best way to get that argument really, really good is if somebody else challenges you on that argument. Let's say I was to compare the situation today with, I don't know, what's something that's completely unrelated. Let's say I was trying to compare today, this day and age, with the coronavirus situation to the Protestant Reformation. And I'd say, the President of the United States is acting exactly the same way that Martin Luther would have acted.
What?
And someone else could then, and then the critique back would be, that's not a good comparison. The President of the United States acts like this, and Luther acts like this. Their field of influence is here, and Luther's influence is here. It's not comparing apples with apples. It's not similar in any way, shape, or form. You have a technological jump that allowed Martin Luther to do what he did. I guess you could argue that Trump had a technological jump that lets him do what he does.
I have a question.
Yes.
Another question. Sorry. What if the main picture we agree on it, but like there's like small details that like
That's fine. That's fine. So you can argue points.
it's not gonna like. What if you have like a little though? Is it gonna affect the way you grade us?
The critiques are going to be, in general, I agree or I disagree. It's the because that I will be grading, because those becauses are arguments.
Mr. Hendel.
Yes,
So
Becky.
basically, the question is to compare the situation now with the situation in the past.
Yes. For example, so we've had people mention the Black Death. We've had people mention Spanish influenza. We've had people mention the Great Depression. Are there any other comparisons that you could put out there?
Maybe like the time when they were like, like when they had to separate people from other people because of Corona, how they had to separate each other from.
When did people separate from each other in the past?
Like the white people and.
I'm not sure if that's what you want to be talking about.
Becky.
I don't know.
Oh,
I don't
you mean
know.
like in segregation in America? Where they had segregation in America? Or apartheid in South Africa? You could try.
What about Cold War?
Actually, just forget about everything I said. Just
I don't know how you would compare it with
forget about what I said.
What about a Cold War?
How would you connect the two?
Like, the conflict with having nukes and communism and stuff.
So there's an ideological difference between the way that the West is responding and the way the East is responding?
Yeah.
I guess you could look at a cultural and ideological difference. Yeah, you could definitely look at the way that Korea was very invasive into people's privacy, but actually got the job done, and America will never do that. At least I don't think they're going to invade people's privacy.
Okay.
You know that Korea is, or was, maybe it still is, tracking phone numbers and telling people where they went.
Really?
Yeah, so there have been a number of people that said, yes, I was sick. I was away at home. And their phones come back with they positive for COVID-19, their phone number gets tracked, it tells you all the GPS locations, the employer looks at it and says, you said you were sick. Why were you in Macau at a casino with my secretary, sort of thing?
Caught you red-handed
Exactly.
with my secretary.
Yeah, that sort of thing. The other one that I might suggest, if you want to go back far enough, is the end of the Roman Republic. If you want to look at partisanism in the US at the moment, it's very, very similar to the Sullan and Marian groups. Any other ideas for comparison? Can I just have a quick hand check? Everybody that's here to raise their hand?
Yep. Hello.
Sometimes the reactions don't show
Then
for the
just
teachers
say hi or
somehow.
something.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi or something.
Hi or
So
something.
if you're talking, I can hear you. Ji Young and Hanbi, are you there?
Yes.
Good. Ji Young?
Yes.
Good. Do you guys have an idea of what you might compare it with?
No.
Yes.
Yes.
I'd like to get those ideas.
Is it okay if we have the same idea as other people?
That's fine.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
can people write in the chat what they're going to compare it with? I think there's 1, 2, 3.
Well, can we have 2 different ideas and we choose in the end?
Difficult to critique.
Okay.
Are we allowed to change our mind?
You can change your mind for the final essay, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Andrew,
Yep.
does it have to be just comparing, or can it be comparing and contrasting?
You can compare and contrast, that's fine. What you want to do finally at the end is, if you want to go from a B to an A sort of level, is you want to be able to say, I therefore will predict this will happen.
Are we allowed to research before we see what we're doing?
That's probably not a bad suggestion there, Elsa. You could have a look around and see what you can find.
Okay, thank you.
All right. For Hurim, you can't really do the last pandemic. The last pandemic that was roughly on the same level in terms of global influence was the swine flu epidemic. But you still have a higher death rate even today for sub-Saharan Africa from malaria. So you still have a pandemic in sub-Saharan Africa going on that nobody talks about. You'd need to pick something, if you're talking about pandemics, you'd need to pick something that's before 1990, not the last one. It has to be before 1990, Jonathan. I don't want you to compare, I don't know, social media of 2020 with social media of 2019. That's not far back enough.
Wait, what? I thought it has to be like, never mind.
How far does it need to be though?
Yeah, so it needs to be at least 30 years in the past. You can't compare the 2016 COVID-19 with the H1N1 swine flu of 2009. It's only 11 years difference. Your global systems haven't changed enough to have to really do a lot of old school study. Yep, 1918. The 1918 pandemic, Urim is fine. Yes, Jonathan.
Does it have to be, like, when you say historical event, does it have to be like something disastrous?
No. If you want to talk about innovation, for example, you could talk about when the last time so when people get isolated and they self-quarantine or are quarantined, you can get there could be the tendency to create or the tendency to innovate. You had, I think Shakespeare wrote 2 or 3 of his plays during pandemics, and Isaac Newton developed the theory of optics while in quarantine. So quarantine has affected people in the past, for example.
In quarantine for what?
I think there was either a cholera or another outbreak of bubonic plague. I can't remember what they are. I know that both of them were quarantined and they developed stuff because they were in quarantine.
Nice.
Yeah, so you could say that if you then go from, okay, this is what this person did in the past, he was quarantined and he developed this. This person was quarantined, he developed this. Therefore, I predict right now, while we're quarantined, somebody is going to develop something.
Mr. Hendro?
They didn't
Yes.
have like.
Yes, Becky.
Oh, okay. Can I do about the cholera?
Cholera? Yes.
Cholera.
Okay, yeah. That's 1849 to 1854, right?
I am not 100% sure with the dates. I do know that it's a time when you have a problem.
Is that similar to corona?
No, cholera is not a very communicable disease. It doesn't spread very well because the way you get cholera is when you don't separate your drinking water from your pooping water.
What?
Mr. Andrew, Mr. Andrew.
Yes, Billy.
So during the Great Depression, nothing really happened, right? But afterwards,
Nothing really happened. Oh my goodness. Go and compare Herbert Hoover with Donald Trump in terms of his industrial background. This was one of the last times that you had a businessman in charge of the United States who also got the Great Depression.
Hold on, Mr. Andrew.
Yep.
And after the Great Depression, wasn't there some sort of revival thing?
Like a spiritual revival.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's an interesting one. So the last time you had a really big like a global mortality would have been like World War II. You had a revival after that in the 60s. So the children of that generation had like the hippie summer of love movement sort of thing. And there was a concept called the Jesus movement during that time. You could compare that after a great mortality.
Are you guys?
But nothing. Mr. Andrew. But are you sure nothing happened after the Depression?
After what?
The Great Depression.
Yeah, the Great Depression ended and kind of went directly into World War II. Like
Okay.
World War II was the end of the Great Depression.
So
Wait.
after World War II is what you're talking about?
Yeah, after World War II, you had economic prosperity as well.
Wait, so the Great Depression happened, then the World War II happened?
Yes, within, like, it's very difficult to say when the Great Depression ended and World War II started.
Oh no.
Well, think of it this way: the Great Depression in America saw a decline in manufacturing, a decline in business, and when World War II was starting, America started selling equipment to both the Germans and the English.
Is that bad?
Not for America; they're making money.
Yeah.
So war is good business for America.
Oh no.
I'm not kidding. I mean, if I was the president of America and I went, how do I make sure that my economy doesn't go down? Start a war.
So people will buy your weapons and stuff?
Yes.
You would really start a war just for that.
You have a president at the moment who says that we need to reopen the country because having the economy die is worse than having people die.
Oh God. Okay.
Okay.
It's just
I would not put that past a world leader to go, how can I restart my economy? Start a war. In fact, the economy might tank because this president may not start a war.
Everyone's economy is going down, kind of, because, I mean, it's not so many people working. It's just not good.
Yes, there are a lot of people not working. You could create jobs for them by making new weapon systems. The Cold War was fantastic at making jobs. Yes, Tim, you still got your hand raised. What's up?
Oh, I forgot to put it down.
Okay. I will check in on you again on Wednesday. Please have something ready there when we come in on Wednesday.
Okay.
You mean like a draft?
I would have made a start. I want at least what your comparison will be and some of the arguments as to why this is a good comparison.
Okay.
Okay. You can go very broad. You can go very, very detailed. You could look on the effects of coronavirus on musicians. You could look at the effects of coronavirus on technology.
Wait, Sandro,
Yep.
we need to compare two historical events, right?
Sorry? Yes. I mean, the 70s is before 1990. If you want to look at the type of music that came out after World War II or after the did the Spanish influenza influence music? Will coronavirus influence music? What does it do to your cinema?
Oh, so we're trying to predict like
You can make it exceedingly narrow. It doesn't have to be on a social thing. It could be about clothing. It could be about like, you know how maybe face masks and hand gloves will become fashion accessories. Can you predict this using something from the past?
wait, so we look at the past historical events, look at what happened, and then we predict which the current one might do.
Yes, what might happen?
Okay.
Andrew,
Yes.
there's this thing called the Plague of Justinian.
Justinian's plague, yes.
Isn't that like the rotting of skin or something?
No, that's Black Plague. It's the same bacteria that the Black Death was. The Black Death was just big. It affected a lot of countries at the same time and followed the Mongol invasion.
Oh, okay.
The Black Plague's
Should
been
I
around
do
forever.
cholera?
You could do the comparison. You could even look at how people treated scientists, because one scientist found out that one particular well in London was causing most of the disease, and people didn't believe him.
Oh.
You could compare him to...
Is that for the cholera?
Yeah, the cholera outbreak, people basically said, yeah, we don't believe you, Mr. Scientist.
Oh, okay.
How are people treating scientists today? Is it the same? Is it different? What will the result be?
So by the end of the week, we need 2 pages and 5 sources.
That's it. And you'll need primary sources as well. The primary sources can be from today, and they can be from the past.
Wait, so what's an example of a primary source?
So a primary source is an eyewitness account. Like, I'm telling you what Cicero said, but Cicero tells you what Cicero said.
Okay.
Wait, where do we find a primary source?
You look for it.
How do we know it's... But how do we know
Okay,
it's primary?
let me give you an example. The Gospels. There are 4 Gospels. Which of these are primary sources? Which are secondary sources? Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Which one of these are primary sources? Let me ask it a different way. Who actually...
Matthew and John.
Matthew was a disciple. John Mark was a missionary with Paul. Luke was a doctor, and John was a disciple as well. So who is a primary source out of these four guys?
Matthew and John.
Matthew and John. Luke is a good source, but he's not a primary source. He's a secondary source. He did research, and he asked people, he got interviews, and he took their information and put it together in a secondary source. He's a good source. Luke's a fantastic source. It's just different from what you get from Matthew and John. Does that explain what a primary source is?
So what would a primary source for like coronavirus be? Like something that's happening right now?
Oh,
like,
get
information.
get a sound bite or a tweet or something that's current, like somebody. Yeah, I'm not sure how accurate that would be. Primary sources can be rubbish.
You gotta watch the news also.
You didn't say they have to be reliable.
Is the news primary source?
Sometimes. I mean, it depends if the reporter's there. If the reporter is there, generally it's a primary source.
So you need like a victim to like say stuff?
Sorry? A victim.
Because they experience it firsthand? Or you need like a scientist to like...
Okay.
I don't know.
I cannot ask you, Elsa, what it's like to have coronavirus. I cannot ask you. You've never experienced that. You can tell me what it's like to be quarantined, though, right? That's a primary source. If you want to interview someone, you just write their name, personal interview, and the date, and that's a primary source. It's also primary research.
So we can make ourselves primary sources?
Yes.
Okay.
That's why I said you need two primary sources so that you don't just quote yourself. Did I say two primary sources? Ay, ay, ay. Where is... Huh. It's not in the rubric. Huh.
Yes.
It's actually not in the rubric. I may have to put it in. Okay, I've made the rubric. I won't change it at the moment.
Yay!
Okay.
Yay.
Are there any other questions?
Yeah, we should probably get started on it.
Okay. Have a good day tomorrow. I'll see you on Wednesday.
Wait. Is the experiment
Yes,
today?
Jonathan.
Isn't quarantine too close to now? Like it's happening now, so we can't really.
No, you can have a primary source of today. In fact, that's why there's a good reason why you give a primary source information from today and primary source information from 10 years.
Okay. Also, what did you say was a similar event to having quarantine?
Having quarantine?
Yes.
You can look into specific effects of like quarantine on artists, quarantine on scientists, quarantine on politicians.
Oh, we can just like choose one person who stayed in quarantine and compare it to like
Yes, you could
on
do
all of us.
You could do a super duper tiny inspection of say Isaac Newton and I don't know and Neil deGrasse Tyson. I mean, these two guys. Well, Neil deGrasse Tyson's not the same level as Isaac Newton, but what is Neil deGrasse Tyson doing today as a scientist in quarantine?
I don't know who he is.
Don't know NGT?
Wait. Actually, can I compare like two different, like completely different people that are in quarantine?
As long as one of them's today and one of them's in the past.
Yeah. So I can compare like Isaac Newton to like what's her name? Wait, Charlie Amilo.
Who's that?
Is
Billy,
that
can you mute your mic? Thank you.
So
This person. It's a
Charlie D'Amelio. She's like a famous
she has the
TikTok
ability.
star.
She has the ability to make music become popular in like a matter of 30 minutes.
You want to talk about TikTok?
I mean, it's
The
present.
reigning
Bruh.
queen of TikTok.
yes?
I mean, it's like what people start to do in quarantine, I guess. I'm not specifically saying I do it. I'm just saying a lot of people are starting to use
Well,
TikTok now.
that would be interesting. What do people do in quarantine in the past? What did they do during the Philadelphia outbreak, for
I
example?
don't know. But I was gonna compare like people, but
You could compare people, but you can't compare
Mhm.
Isaac Newton with Charlie D'Angelo,
oof.
Charlie
But like,
D'Amelio,
okay.
because it's not apples and apples. This guy is who you would want to compare with. Okay,
Who?
this is Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Oh,
I know that dude.
but I don't know anything about him.
Isn't he bald now?
No, he's not. He's an astrophysicist.
Ah, yeah.
He's not the same. He's not the same level of. He doesn't write at the same level as Newton.
But I was thinking of a different person, lol.
Really,
I was thinking of Dr. Phil for a second.
Dr. Phil. That's the guy.
yes.
And he's
Okay.
actually talking when he made this shape of his hands and that eye roll. He's talking about Isaac Newton. So his comment is things like, he invented calculus, the theory of optics, the theory of gravity, before he was 26, and then he just goes, boom.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
wait, but Mr. Andrew, there isn't anything like apples to apples if we look at people in quarantine now and back then.
Really?
I mean, yeah, like in quarantine here, like people just use their phones and stuff. People back then, they don't.
They don't improve themselves. At the moment, they just entertain themselves. Back then, they were bored.
I mean, I guess back then they like invented stuff, but like
because they were bored.
Yeah, but now nobody does that.
They're not bored enough. Maybe if you wanted to get quarantine to work as a catalyst for invention, you take away everybody's phones.
But then how would I make a prediction like from
Mr. Hendro, we have like 4 minutes until our next class.
Go on, Nikki.
You said you can leave before we...
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Oh, yelling.
Thank you.
Give me people.
Thank you.
Mr. Hendro, I still need help. I don't know what to do.
You've come up with some good ideas.
Yeah, but like they all end up not working.
Mm-hmm.
Oof.
Hey, if you wanted to compare Charlie D'Amelio, you'd probably want to look at somebody who did popular stuff during their time. I mean, Isaac Newton wasn't popular.
But
compare
I mean
her to Shakespeare.
But he wasn't in Oh, I can just compare two people? Like
No. Shakespeare was in quarantine.
Oh, he was?
Yes. He wrote King Lear while he was in quarantine.
Oh, why was he in quarantine?
There was a plague in London.
Oh. Oof. Okay, I guess I can do that.
Yeah. Have a look at what he's doing though. If his work is very derivative, like if he's stuck at home and his work is all about history books that he's got at home, he's reading books. Okay, I'm going to make a play about this. It could be the same way that you could say this Charlie D'Amelio character is going, I'm stuck at home, I'm listening to music. I'm gonna make TikToks about this. So she's turning one medium into another. Music into TikToks. Shakespeare's turning books into plays.
Okay. But like I forgot what I was gonna ask. Yeah. Oh, did Shakespeare like change like
history? He changes stuff in history books? Yes. Goodness, yes.
Okay,
He messed everything up.
Okay.
At the last lines of
Uh-huh.
Caesar, what did Caesar say before he died? The last words that he says.
I don't know.
According to Shakespeare, it's et tu, Brute, not you too, Brutus. Do you know what he actually said?
What?
Not you too, my son.
Oof.
Talking to Brutus.
Oof. Okay. Yeah, I got an idea now. Yeah. Alright, do I go
Mr.
now?
Andrew?
Yep.
We must identify the primary sources, right?
That's it. MLA citations.
So we like label them, right?
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Andrew.
Okay. I'm gonna end this. Thank you.
Yep, thank you.